Mary Poppins Returns transports us back to Cherry Tree Lane for the very first time since 1964. And naturally, the movie is filled with allusions to the original film as well as to P.L. Travers' novels that inspired the franchise in the first place. In this video, I'll go through all the things you may have missed in the film, from Easter eggs to cameos to the most obscure of references. As I'll be discussing the movie's finer points, I will issue a pretty big spoiler warning, so don't watch this before you've seen the movie. Welcome to another edition of Explaining Disney. Character appearances. Multiple characters from the original film make an appearance in Mary Poppins Returns, the most obvious of which is of course Mary Poppins herself, portrayed this time superbly by Emily Blunt. Of course, the two children from the original movie, Jane and Michael Banks, appear 25 years senior, portrayed here by Ben Wishaw and Emily Mortimer, who, might I add, is inspired casting for Jane. As a grown-up, Jane spends her time as a union organiser for the group Spruce, Society for the Protection of the Rights of the Underpaid Citizens of England. It would appear that Jane has followed in her mother's footsteps by becoming an activist. Her mother was of course a suffragette and even had her own musical number in the original, Sister Suffragette. In a genius piece of casting, Dick Van Dyke appears in the film as Mr. Dawes Jr., who was of course a character in the original film, the son of Mr. Dawes Sr., who Dick Van Dyke also portrayed. Since Van Dyke couldn't play Bert in this one, I think this is the perfect role and a great nod to the original. Bert's absence is of course addressed in the movie though, as Jack mentions that he is out travelling the globe. Jack is of course clearly modelled off of Bert from the original. He is a lamplighter who we discover was in fact an apprentice chimney sweep under Bert in his younger years. Much like Bert, Jack is also portrayed by an American actor putting on a fake cheesy Cockney accent. Alan, the Banks' maid, also appears in the film. In the original she was played by Hermione Baddeley, but here she is portrayed by Julie Walters. Admiral Boom and Mr. Binnacle, the two elderly sailors who live atop the Banks' neighbouring house, are still kicking around and firing the cannon every hour. However, Admiral Boom is known to be a little bit slow these days and now also gets around in a wheelchair. Miss Lark appears in the movie as well, and just as in the original movie, continues to walk her dog through the park daily. While her dog was named Andrew in the original film, he is now named Willoughby. This suggests that since this movie takes place 25 years later, Miss Lark has probably got herself a new dog, or maybe this version of Miss Lark is a relative of that from the original film, being as though both characters are around the same age, yet 25 years apart. The Bird Woman from the original, as seen in the Meet the Birds musical sequence, can also be briefly seen along with her pigeons on the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral in one of the movie's early establishing shots. And Mary's wisecracking parrot head-handled umbrella from the original makes another appearance in Returns, as do the waiter penguins from the original's Jolly Holiday sequence, who appeared during the Royal Dalton Ball segment. Movie references. The movie opens with an incredibly long opening credit sequence featuring an overture and a selection of gorgeous landscape paintings, just like in the original. In fact, the movie's end credits even mention main title paintings inspired by legendary Disney artist Peter Allenshaw, who was the artist behind the original film's matte paintings and concept artist on the film. In the end credits, Dick Van Dyke's name begins as an anagram before unscrambling itself back into the correct order, a reference to the exact same thing which happened in the end credits of the original when Dick Van Dyke was credited for playing Mr. Dawes. In the opening of the movie, where Michael and Jane are rummaging through the attic for the Banks shares certificate, they come across a number of items from the original film. There is of course the kite, which played a major role in the original movie. Oh, let's go fly a kite. And attached to it is still Mrs. Banks' suffragette ribbon.
A proper kite needs a proper tail, don't you think?
Michael picks up a snow globe, which would appear to be the same one that Mary had in the Feed the Birds sequence in the original, and if you look carefully in the background, you can see a number of building blocks, the same ones which appeared in the original Spoonful of Sugar sequence. Mary flies back into the Banks' lives in a costume heavily inspired by that of Poppins' arrival costume in the original. In fact, out of almost 150 costumes designed for the movie, costume designer Sandy Powell says that this costume is the only one which alludes to the original. Another nice little nod to the original in this costume is the robin on Mary's hat, a clear reference to the robin Mary sings to during Spoonful of Sugar. When Mary meets with the Bankses once again, the two grown-ups are gobsmacked. To Michael, Mary says,
"Close your mouth, please, Michael. We are still not a codfish."
A clear reference to this line.
Close your mouth, please, Michael. We are not a codfish.
And to Jane, she says,
"Still rather inclined to giggle, I see."
a clear reference to this line.
Rather inclined to giggle doesn't put things away.
Mary also refers to herself as being practically perfect in every way.
Practically perfect in every way.
Another reference to this same scene.
As I expected, Mary Poppins practically perfect in every way.
Karen Dotrice, the actress who played Jane in Mary Poppins, makes a very small cameo in Returns as a woman who asks Jack for directions on the street. After receiving the directions, she says, "Many thanks sincerely," the same way Jane and Michael sign off their letter in The Perfect Nanny.
Many thanks sincerely, Jane and Michael. Thanks.
It would seem that Mary is still up to her old tricks in Returns and once again travels through the house by sliding up the stair railings, a favourite pastime of hers from the olden days. In the original movie, Mary brings her enchanted carpet bag to the Banks' house, and when she settles into the residence, magically pulls a whole bundle of her personal belongings from it. In Returns, Mary's carpet bag is once again in tow and is still filled with all kinds of oversized possessions. She even pulls a parasol umbrella from the bathroom sink in a similar manner. At one point, Mary looks at herself in the mirror while her reflection moves independently and watches her as she walks away, again in a very similar manner to what happened in the original.
Cheeky.
During the movie, Mary says the term ship-shape a number of times. This could quite possibly be a reference to this line of dialogue in Bert's introductory sequence in Mary Poppins.
Likes his house ship-shape, he does. Ship-shape and Bristol fashion at all times.
When the characters travel to the animated world in Mary Poppins Returns, they do so by jumping into the painting on the side of a Royal Doulton bowl. Very similar to how the characters in the original travelled into the animated world by jumping into Bert's sidewalk paintings. The animated characters in the animated world are also drawn with an obvious inspiration from the original's animated characters, employing the same angular designs commonly used in Disney's 1960s animations. Hidden within the movie's score are a number of musical phrases from the original movie's soundtrack. A phrase from Spoonful of Sugar plays when Mary arrives at the Banks' house, phrases from Let's Go Fly a Kite and Spoonful of Sugar play when she leaves, and a phrase from Jane and Michael's The Perfect Nanny plays as they watch her flying away. A phrase from the Fidelity Fiduciary Bank plays the first time Mr. Dawes Jr. appears on the screen, and one from Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious plays during the end credits suite. Many of the songs in the movie are actually homages to those from the original. Can you imagine that? Sees Mary making bath time fun in the way she made cleaning fun during Spoonful of Sugar. A Cover Is Not the Book is a lively comedic vaudeville number between Mary and Jack, which sees them surrounded by animated characters, much like the Supercalifragilistic number between Mary and Bert. Turning Turtle is another madcap number very similar to I Love to Laugh. Both numbers feature characters defying gravity as well as a member of Mary's family. Seemingly, Mary's cousin Topsy Turvy lives in the same magical alleyway as her Uncle Arthur. Trip a Little Light Fantastic sees a troupe of lamplighters or Learys dancing under the London moonlight, and a very clear homage to Step in Time, which sees Bert and his fellow chimney sweeps dancing atop the moonlit London rooftops. And Nowhere to Go But Up is the uplifting finale of the movie set in the Cherry Tree Lane Park, much like Let's Go Fly a Kite, the optimistic number which closes Mary Poppins in the same park. When Mr. Dawes Jr. speaks with the Bankses at the end, he mentions a story about a man with a wooden leg. This is, of course, a reference to the recurring joke in the original film.
Speaking of names, I know a man with a wooden leg named Smith.
What's the name of his other leg?
After hearing Bert tell this joke to Uncle Albert, the Banks children tell the joke to their father, who then tells it to Mr. Dawes Jr. and Sr. I find it a little bit morbid that Mr. Dawes Jr. would bring this joke up in front of the Bankses, considering it's this joke that literally made his father die of laughter.
Capital bit of humor. Wooden leg named Smith. Father died laughing.
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir.
The film's finale reveals that a tuppence that Michael invests in the bank accrued lots of interest over the years and turned into a small fortune. This is of course the same tuppence that Michael is convinced to invest in the bank during Dawes Sr.'s Fidelity Fiduciary Bank musical number. This is one of my favourite circle of life moments in the movie, where its conclusion is resolved using a plot device from the original. The finale of the movie sees Michael saying to Jane, "Let's go fly a kite," referencing the song Let's Go Fly a Kite. Again, he later sings in Nowhere to Go But Up, "I might start feeding birds and go fly a kite." Another reference to the song as well as to the Feed the Birds song. Book connections. When we first meet Mary Poppins in the new film, she flies in on a kite instead of her umbrella as in the original movie. This is a direct reference to the second novel, Mary Poppins Comes Back, where Mary does in fact fly back into the Banks' lives on a kite. When Mary Poppins first arrives at the Banks' house, Jane exclaims, "I didn't came back," an obvious reference to the title of the same novel. During the film, Mary is asked how long she will be staying, and she mentions, "until the door opens." Conversely, this is a reference to the third Mary Poppins novel, Mary Poppins Opens the Door. As I mentioned earlier, Miss Lark's dog is named Willoughby in Returns, while her dog in the original is named Andrew. Miss Lark is in fact a character in the original novels who owns 2 dogs and not just one. In the book, they go by the names, you guessed it, Andrew and Willoughby. The character of the park keeper who continually tells the Banks children to observe the rules, keep off the grass, is a character originally found in the 4th novel, Mary Poppins in the Park, where he yells the same phrase at the children. Meryl Streep's character in the movie Topsy Turvy, Mary's second cousin, is a combination of 2 characters from Mary Poppins Comes Back, Mary's cousin Arthur Turvy and his wife Topsy Turvy. In the book, it is Arthur who is the one afflicted with the condition, which makes him do the opposite of what he wants on the second Monday of every month. This includes him winding up standing on his head when he wants to stand normally. Disney legend Angela Lansbury portrays the character of Balloon Lady, who appeared in the Mary Poppins novels. Of course, Lansbury wasn't in the original Mary Poppins, but did appear in the movie's almost spiritual sequel, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Of course, alongside David Tomlinson, who portrayed Mr. Banks in the original Mary Poppins. In fact, funnily enough, Bedknobs and Broomsticks was originally prepped as a backup film for Disney in case Walt couldn't secure the rights to Mary Poppins. While we are on the topic of Bedknobs, the underwater musical number in Returns could quite possibly be a visual reference to the beautiful Briny Sea musical number in Bedknobs, the song of which was originally intended for, yet cut out of, Mary Poppins. As we are discussing book connections, this underwater sequence is also clearly inspired by the undersea sequence in Mary Poppins Opens the Door. In fact, the exact same sequence which inspired beautiful Briny Sea in the first place. The A Cover Is Not the Book musical sequence is absolutely littered with literary references to the Poppins novels. Firstly, Mary sings a brief song about a character named Nellie Rubina, who was actually a character who appeared in both Mary Poppins Comes Back and Mary Poppins Opens the Door. Just as in the song, Nellie was made of wood and was in fact a life-size Dutch doll. In this sequence, if you keep your eyes on the books in the background, you'll notice a few more novel references. The Marble Boy is the 4th chapter in Mary Poppins Opens the Door. In this chapter, the characters come across a book with the name William Wetherall Wilkins scrawled in its front cover. Further referencing this chapter, the name was also used for Colin Firth's character of the bank president in the film. The Cat That Looked at a King references the 3rd chapter in this same book, where Poppins tells a story to the children about a king who was outsmarted by a cat. Furthermore, this story was adapted into a short animated film starring Julie Andrews, which was created for the 40th anniversary DVD release of Mary Poppins. Additionally, the other door refers to the 8th chapter of the same book. Lady Hyacinth Macaw could be a reference to the Hyacinth Macaw that spoke to Mary Poppins in the first book's 6th chapter. Lucky Thursday refers to the title of the 3rd chapter of Mary Poppins in the Park, and The Day Out refers to the 2nd chapter in the first Mary Poppins novel, which was in fact the chapter which inspired the original film's Jolly Holiday segment, the animation live-action hybrid sequence, which in turn inspired the Cover Is Not the Book sequence in the first place. And at that is all of the cameos, references, and Easter eggs that I spotted in Mary Poppins Returns. Did you personally spot any more that I didn't? Fire away in the comments below and let me know what I missed. If this is your first time viewing one of my videos, you like what you've seen, you'd like to see more like this in the future, then please don't forget to hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen right now, and also hit that like button down below if you're feeling extra generous. Also, don't forget to check out my many social media accounts, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day.